Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Hey, it's another rare one today. If you've been tuned into my channel for the past month or so, I had another one of these really rare guitars. This is a super custom. Now, if you don't know what a super custom is, or you didn't watch my last video, it's basically the love child between a The Les Paul and a 25/50th anniversary. These are built in the same body style as a The Les Paul, which means it has a mahogany core body with maple top and maple laminate sides and back. They have the 25/50th anniversary's fretboard. These were also used on high-end arch tops. I believe these are called the Super 400 after the Super 400 guitar. That's kind of like a large arch-topped guitar. But these are Super 400 inlays. They're basically just like normal block inlays, but they have dashes going through them. You have 2, 1, 2, 1. It just kind of alternates up and down. The 25/50th anniversary, their fretboards, I believe they stop at the 17th fret, whereas this one goes all the way up the neck. That's really cool. I've actually never noticed that before until just right now. The Super Custom is kind of a nickname for these. Their official name is Les Paul Limited Edition. And similar to the Les Paul, that makes them impossible to search online, so most people don't even know about these. Now you're going to notice something different about this one, is it doesn't have the 5-piece neck like my last one. Now after my last video, I actually had the owner of the very first Super Custom reach out to me. He's like, hey man, I love your video, but you were wrong. The first Super Custom was built in 1979 for Les Paul himself, not 1980. I had quoted in that last video these were made from around 1980 through 84. But he was able to confirm with me with photos of the first built Super Custom from 1979. That one was given to Les Paul himself, and it is fantastic and amazing because it's built the same way as a The Les Paul, even closer because it still has the wooden binding. So imagine a The Les Paul but with a dark tobacco sunburst like finish. So I almost got my hands on that one, but at the end he decided to keep it, and I can fully understand why. So famous user of this guitar, Neal Schon of Journey. He is the one who has basically made these things famous, because if you know about a Super Custom, it's likely because of him. He's used it in many music videos, live and on tour, and this one's been customized to look pretty much just like his. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this rare Norland era Les Paul. The face of the headstock here, you can see it's beautifully golden and ambered. I believe there's a little bit of overspray. Once we get it under black light, you can see a little bit on the edges. Golden hue to the lacquer. This is definitely a heavily aged example here, but it's in fairly good shape on the front here. You've got some light finish checking, but nothing too bad. The truss rod cover reads Les Paul Limited Edition. Now this one's a little bit different from that last one. The font is a little bit different. Some more information that the owner of number 1 gave me is he was told there were 31 Super Customs built. Now this is a theory. I'm thinking there were 31 of them built with the 5-piece maple necks. And then I believe they decided to make more of these because the later ones have a limited edition stamp number on them. This one's 0055. I've seen it quoted that there's 50 of these made, but this one exceeds that number. So there's probably around 60 or so of these out there. They're very rare. Most people don't even know what to call them, so when they do surface to market, half the time people don't even see them. But this one does have the Custom Shop Edition stamp. So that's just a little extra trivia behind what I think Super Customs are. I think there's less than 100 of these out of all versions. This one still retains the brass nut. I polished that up all nicely and it's nice and shiny again. And once again, ebony fretboard with original frets and Super 400 inlays that go even further up the neck. than most of these fretboards, so that's really cool. Now I will say you're going to want to get these frets redressed and recrowned. There's plenty of life left to them, especially once you get up here, but it's a little bit too buzzy to really, seriously gig this guitar. I mean, can you play it right now just fine, crank it through your Marshall and not even tell a difference? Yeah, pretty much, but I will say definitely invest a little bit just to get these frets redressed and crowned, and you'll have a fantastic playing guitar again. The fretboard's in good shape here. I mean, there's some very, very minor divoting on the second fret, but I mean, very tiny. It's actually in pretty good shape overall. Now this guitar came from Japan. It's hung out there probably forever. And whenever I buy a guitar from Japan, they're always beat when I get them. They play these things over there, that's for sure. But I feel like this guitar was still very well respected, because there's no like negligent areas of wear. It's actually fairly clean considering all it's been through. You can see here there's some indentations from like somebody's bracelet or picking. And as you go over, there's tons of like that beautiful finish checking. There's some chipping to the lacquer right there and more checking. And some light nicks and dings. But it's a beautiful top. This was originally cherry sunburst that's faded. See some dings there. And at one point in time, somebody had a Bigsby on this. You can see evidence of the snake bite right there, and then there's another one right here. But what's kind of nice is that they filled the holes in, so they kind of just look like any other normal nicks and dings. But you also do have the holes down here that were filled in as well. So lots of wear and tear, especially along the sides here. But I would still say this was a well-respected guitar. It just had a job to do, unlike a lot of Les Pauls out there. Alright, so as far as the originality of the plastics, I'm not 100% sure. The neck pickup ring looks about right, but the bridge pickup, I don't know, it just doesn't look like it was made custom for this top. You can see there's a very tiny gap, so the pickup rings might have been replaced at one point in time. The neck pickup, I believe, is fully original. It's an 84 Shaw. But the bridge pickup, I'm guessing, might be swapped out. It's definitely at least been taken out of this guitar and put back in. But it has a date stamp of 1980, about mid-1980. It doesn't have the T's on the top, so it's definitely not a T-top. So I believe it's still a Shaw, a very early Shaw in a zebra form. This is exactly kind of how Neal Schon's looked. So I'm guessing somebody might have put an error correct zebra in here. That way they could emulate Neal Schon's guitar. The bridge and tailpiece have been replaced. Obviously that's because somebody had a Bigsby on this at one point in time. This is kind of a rip-off ABR1 bridge. I couldn't really find a branding on it. And then this tailpiece is a lightweight gold tailpiece. I believe they make those of aluminum. And the studs on both of these I do believe are still original though, so those are easy to swap back to original if you want them to, but honestly it plays just fine with them. I would just leave them, maybe switch this over back to the correct Nashville style. The pick guard definitely looks aged. I will say the bracket definitely looks original, but once again I can't be 100% sure on that. But I'm pretty sure that this poker chip is original. It's definitely aged very similar to the guitar. The knobs are super aged, and they definitely are original. You can also see you got the little thumb bleeders on here, which is a cool vintage appointment. We'll take a quick look here again, kind of along the edges. You can see the lacquer wear, but beautiful flame top on this one. Now this one, the back and sides aren't as heavily as flamed, but it's kind of like a nice light flame, as you'll see here in a minute. Back of the headstock time, this is kind of the downfall to this example. It's had at least 3 different sets of tuners on it. It would have originally probably came with Schallers. You can see there's little holes right here along the edges where the original Schallers were. And then it looks like they switched to like a seal fast Kluson style. Those really high-end arch top tuners that are giant. So you can see the leftover holes there that were then filled in. And then you're now on a more modern set of gold Grovers. So they definitely feel a lot more new, but you know, they take up less space than the seal fasts. Now, if I were to keep this guitar in my collection, what I would suggest doing to kind of clean this up is go ahead and buy some seal fast Kluson tuners. That way you can re-drill these holes and it'll cover up most of what's wrong with this headstock. Because I believe those holes will end up right where the Grovers are, so all you'll have left are the original Schaller holes. And as you can see, those are hard to find. I mean, you can see them, but they're not as much of an eyesore as this. If you end up doing that whole tuner thing, I would actually suggest maybe sanding this off, like take it to a luthier and getting it finished correctly. Then you would 100% know if there's a crack there or not. And if there's not, you could touch this up to look better than it does now. So serial number on this one is 82404578, made in USA. These weren't Kalamazoo made because I believe Kalamazoo was shut down in '83. So it's a little after that. So these are Nashville made, and this one limited edition serial number 0055. Now back here, I checked with the seller before I bought this guitar. I said, there's no headstock repair, right? There's no finished touch-ups? He says, nope, none of that. So I was leery, but I mean, I've seen this on like higher end arch tops, so I thought, well, maybe it is original. I really didn't think it was, and when I got it, it's not. This has been oversprayed, and that's a big question mark here. If you hold this up to the light, this is actually kind of like a dark brown finish. You can see through to the wood grain, but I cannot say with 100% certainty if there's a repair here or not. What I can say for certain is there is lacquer over all of these filled in holes. So it's almost like they decided, okay, let's get those holes not visible. And they shot it with a lacquer that was a little bit too dark. And that kind of made this, because you can see here that since the heel's dark, that likely means this area was dark to begin with. So I almost think like this area was dark, and then they kind of shot this area in order to cover up extra holes, and it was just a little too dark and they went, oops, and then they went to a lighter finish here. That could be what it is, or there could be a really, really good repair under here. But you know, if I'm gonna sell this guitar, I'm gonna sell it as it's been repaired, because I can't tell either way. I've looked at this thing good, long, and hard. I can't really see anything for 100% sure, except for maybe right under here. If I can get it in the light right, you can kind of see what looks like might have been a small little crack that they glued there. So I can't say for sure, but I'm definitely going to say this has been some type of repair. There's definitely a finish touch up here at the very least. This is definitely a 60s style profiled neck. You've got some wear and tear to it, but really it's not too bad for how much this thing has been played. You can see you've got some finish wear here, but none of this you really feel while you play it. It's a nice smooth playing neck. Got some wear in the middle and some light nicks and dings, but once again, this is not a 5-piece neck. This is actually the 3-piece maple neck yet, which honestly is surprising in 1984. This is a fairly late 84. This should have been mahogany. So that's really cool to see. Definitely adds to the limited edition status of this guitar, but you can see beautiful figuring to it. That's probably why they went with the maple, because it's, you know, it's got beautiful figuring like this. I think that's kind of how all arch tops have been, but I could be wrong on that. I'm not an expert on those. But beautiful 60s profile. Back of the guitar, it's not heavily pinstripe flame, but this one reminds me of like a beach. It's just the waves slowly cruising in there. It's nice and wavy. I like that. Because depending on your angle, obviously with all figured tops, it looks way different. Now, I was very pleased to not see this chewed up by buckle rash. This could be a lot worse. Fortunately, on this one, about all you've got is some finish checking all over. You can kind of see those dark lines as I run the light over it. Now obviously you've got some buckle wear and indentations and nicks and dings, but for the most part it's clean. It's really not in that bad of shape. Now something that's interesting, the pots are all original. They're good, but underneath here on the back plate, there's actually a sticker that says Gibson in the old Gibson style that also has the serial number on it. That was kind of cool to see, and that it's still stuck on there. I mean, it's starting to flake off, but it is there. Because on some of the higher end reissue guitars, they used to stamp the serial number here, a traditional stamp, like on the Leo's Les Paul reissues from the Kalamazoo factory. They had that, and a few other reissues, because the serial numbers weren't traditional, but it was cool to see it double stamped there. But electronic wise, it's all original except for that bridge pickup. That's definitely been in and out. Might not be original, but it's still a Shaw, so I don't really hold too much against this guitar because this has that perfect classic rock sound. It really is a beautiful sounding guitar. Look around the side here. You can see there's some finish checking in this area from, the player's hand being sweaty. And that's apparently worn away some of the finish right here. There's like no heel resets or anything on this one, but you can see some light wear and tear there. But for whatever reason, just that area of missing finish there. The rest is just kind of finish checked, and you can see how, ambered the lacquer's looking. It does still have that cap right here where they bent the maple laminate on the outside. It's just a little less pronounced because it's actually it's actually binding colored instead of rosewood, like on the last Super Custom I had. You can see right here, you do have some figuring. I mean, it's not as extreme as the last example I had, but it's definitely nothing to sneeze at either. I think the ambering of the lacquer has definitely toned down the effect a little more. You can see the input jack here has been cracked a little bit from over tightening. This part, the input jack kind of sticks out, and that can sometimes catch on the case, so I'll let you know that before you get it here. But lots of finish checking on the bottom, and you can see right here the laminate's not like coming apart or anything, but you can see that the lacquer has kind of shrunk there a little bit, so it looks like there's a line. This bottom strap button has also been replaced, and you can also see the 4 holes from the Bigsby that were filled in, but this was not refinished over or touched up. But you can see once again your lacquer wear there, and some light wear on the edges. But for everything this guitar is, you really have to take it into consideration. This could be in a lot worse shape. It really could be. With this much aging to the lacquer and this much play wear, you could be missing all the finish on the back of this. The finish could be completely worn off the neck, but it's not. This guitar, I mean, it is special. It's a beautiful guitar. I wish this wasn't here because it's too much of a mystery. But if you're looking for a really rare guitar to gig, this is a nice one. It's got those Shaws in it. Overall, Super Custom. They're kind of an unknown model because they have a terrible name, Les Paul Limited Edition. There's so many Les Paul Limited Editions out there, you can't Google that and find it. Even if you know what you're looking for, it's hard to find them. But if you have one of these, you are an elite collector. You have a very rare guitar. I definitely suggest checking one of these out if you ever see one. Alright, we'll take a look at the face of the headstock here under blacklight. You can see where I was talking about maybe a little bit of finish touch-up along the edges, because it's a little bit darker glowing there. That's probably left over from the overspray on the back, I would guess. And you can see there where there are some finish checking. And that's kind of what makes me think there might be a really good repair under there, but I don't know, on the back side of that is kind of the very top of the overspray, so I can't say for certain. It will definitely be sold as a repaired headstock because I can't say for sure either way. You can see the nicks and dings in the finish, as well as where the player's hand were. You can see where it glows a slightly different color. That's a concentration of sweat in the finish. So you can see he's definitely laying his hand right there and chugging away at his elbow there. That's kind of why the finish does that super checking, because the sweat kind of like gets in the finish. It's kind of disgusting but cool at the same time. You can see there the Bigsby shadow from when it used to be on this guitar. And the original knobs are glowing awesomely. And you can see the chipping of the finish along the binding. So, once again, it's not abused. Not an abused guitar by any means. Just very, very well loved. Back of the headstock here. Once again, I wish whoever oversprayed this wouldn't have done it so dark if they weren't actually hiding anything. And I don't see anything 100% except for the tuner area right there, where that kind of glue residue is. So I'm guessing that's probably where there was a crack. When they had installed a tuner, it split the wood a little bit and they repaired it. That's what I'm guessing. But again, I'm not 100% sure. We'll take a look at the sides here. Everything looks pretty good on the sides. But the back of the neck here, you can see once again the finish wear and some chipping to the finish. But overall, it's in pretty good shape, all things considered. Back of the guitar here, once again, I'm surprised by the condition of the back. You've got a little bit of light finish wear there, but it's in pretty good shape, all things considered on the back. I was expecting it to be a lot more beat up. Now this was something I wasn't expecting. The finish has kind of started to chip here, but it's not like spreading at this time. There you can see some dirt and grime. Some wear along the binding once again. And you can see the wear along here as well. So, not necessarily one for a pure collector, but if you really like the player's grade rare guitars, this is definitely one that's up your alley, because it won't have a $14,000 price point. Alright, this Super Custom weighs just a hair under 10 pounds at 9 pounds 15.6 ounces. My last Super Custom from the first run of them weighed just a hair over 11 pounds. Now I believe it's an 83 when they start weight relief, so there might be some light weight relief to this guitar in the mahogany core. I'm not 100% sure on that. I really wish I could buy an X-ray for these guitars for that reason. We'll take a look at the case that this thing came with. I am unsure of this case, if it's from the 80s or not, if this was a one-off of some sort. Now you're going to say, hey Trogly, this looks just like any other 80s lift and reissue case. Of course it's original. In looks, yes. But once you touch and feel it, it's definitely a different material. This feels a little more silky than the other ones. The lift and reissues, they kind of feel like paper, kind of, in a way, like a waxy paper. But this feels more like vintage correct. And something else I notice here is usually this just says Gibson, and it looks like that. But this one says Gibson House underneath it. So I don't know if that's like a Gibson House special, like this is a prototype, or if only like the late Super Customs got these. I don't know. But you got 1, 2, 3 with a locking one. The key is included. 4, and you got these little nobules back here, and 2 screws, and a 5th latch on the back. Now once you open it up, this material is nothing like the other 80s lift and reissue cases, and here's the big difference. Lift-ins are, pretty famous for, not being the greatest cases in the world because they only have that single neck support. This one's got the double neck support, and it's even got like additional heel support here. And right here, this is a thick pad of foam underneath here. This is a much better case than the 80s reissue ones because it's actually got quite a bit of decent foam. Now on the sides, yes, it's plush, but it's not quite as nice as that. But you can kind of see what the foam looks like here right there where the pink interior has torn a little bit. You do have a case compartment lid in here. That's where the original key sleeps. But the feel of the interior, it kind of feels like hair, like dog hair, like if you're petting a dog. It's similar in texture to that. So this is a very interesting case that I'm kind of confused by. I've never seen another one quite like it. The handle is definitely much different than the other 80s reissues. Those ones kind of have a plastic feel. I mean, this one has the same feel as the case itself and is actually laced together. So overall, I mean, the case is in good shape. It's got some scratches and nicks and dings. But this Gibson logo doesn't look quite 80s to me like the other lift and reissues. So this is a big mystery case to me. I do not know exactly what this case is. If it's the original one, that's just kind of, a prototype of some sorts or a special edition version of it. But, it's included with the guitar. Maybe somebody else will chime in that sees this video that knows more about this one than I do. But it's definitely a cool case. Test the fit of the case here real quick. I mean, side to side you got a little bit of motion, but not a lot, and up and down you're pretty well secure. So it's definitely a much better version of a lift and reissue case. For the cleans, we'll be running through a Gibson Super Gold Tone GA30RV. The dirty tones come from a Marshall JMP 1C. If you think you might be interested in this Gibson Les Paul Super Custom from 1984, feel free to contact me on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Troglys, Trogoys. You can also check out the reverb ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow. Take care.